and its coalitions. Colleagues, my name is Uvyakazi Jengmabesenchilo. I'll be facilitating this dialogue. The time now is 3:10. We were scheduled to start at 3 o'clock. Just to give a few announcements, house announcements. So the event is a hybrid event. So we'd like to acknowledge our audience that have connected on the virtual platform. We also ask, just for the sake of working together, if we could all put our cell phones on silent. And then secondly, in this venue, we have 6 exits, 2 at the back, 2 in the middle, and then 2 in front. So the left one here in front is the one that we can use for if anyone would like to use the ladies or the gents. So would therefore like to start our program with calling onto the stage Mr. Luthando Jack, who is the Dean of Students at the Nelson Mandela University. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Program Director, the Acting Director of the Raymond Mhlaba Center, Professor Ndombana, our Dean, the hosting dean, of this dialogue this afternoon, Professor Maseko, who could not be with us here physically, but is joining us virtually. Our partners to this dialogue in the form of ECSECC, which is the Eastern Cape Socio-Economic Consultative Council and agency of the Office of the Premier. SANGOCO, the South African National Government, non-governmental coalition, our panelists, as well as our distinguished, our celebrated facilitator, Sakina, welcome. Our resident political parties in the city, in our city. I've seen quite a number of leaders, our former mayors. Somebody was saying, as we're reflecting about the topic earlier on, was saying this dialogue is timely and probably long overdue. So we're counting how many mayors we have had in the last 10 years in the city, and how many municipal managers we've had here in the city. But I'm sure the panelists will reflect more on this as to why it is the case. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, and some of the few students who have joined us this afternoon, as well as those greetings to those who are joining us online as well. Welcome to this dialogue, whose focus is to really talk about how do we advance good governance and leadership in our city, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. I do hope that this dialogue will be generative in terms of truly reflecting and focusing on this necessary question of good governance, as well as leadership, and perhaps on how do we foster good governance, and on how do we hone a particular caliber of leadership that is truly capable of reimagining this city, not just as an economic model, an economic hub for the province, but as a new generation coastal city that, amongst others, takes advantage of, unlocks, and fully develop, for instance, its oceans economy potential into a true economic frontier. So we hope that when we reflect on the questions of good governance and leadership, we'll reflect in relation to what needs to be done to uplift the standard, the quality of life of the people of this beautiful city of ours. And I must also just say that one of the, I think, tragedies of the post-1994 era or dispensation is the, and I'm saying this addressing mainly politicians, and I'm saying this unapologetically, is the liquidation of and demobilization of the agency of the people to politicians. I think that's one of the tragedies of the post-1994 dispensation. People's agency as their own liberators was liquidated, into politicians, and as a result, when we fight amongst ourselves as politicians, I'm putting myself now in your shoes, the people just fold their arms as if there's nothing that they can do to extricate themselves from the challenge that, in our context, that we are facing. So perhaps one of the questions that Ongama we need to grapple with is, how do we bring back the pre-94 spirit of people-centered, people-driven processes of change, as opposed to politician-centered, politician-driven processes of change? Because if our lessons are to, if we are to take heed of the lessons of the city, especially in the context of the high leadership turnover that I referred to, inadequate service delivery, and all that goes with it, clearly the status quo is unsustainable. So therefore, what I'm basically calling upon as I wind up, what I'm basically calling upon is for us to be truly reflexive in the interest of the people of the city as to what happened, what has gone wrong. So as we talk about good governance, we've got to ask ourselves, good governance for what? Towards what end? Because good governance on its own is insufficient. It must be good governance so that we can be able to achieve accelerated service delivery, improve the quality of life. So if we're talking about good leadership for what? Is there a common agenda, for instance, within the current council, aimed at improving the quality of life of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay? So I think Pramke Jonas usually says we seem to have stopped thinking, you know, as a country. So as I end, I think because we are a university, we would call for really for thought leadership. I think the moment that we're facing calls for thought leadership. The moment we're facing also calls for thought liberation, not just thought leadership, but thought liberation, for us to unthink and unlearn perhaps everything that we know about governance and leadership, with a view to think anew if we are to really reposition the city as a model center, you know, for development. With those few words, welcome to this dialogue. I'm looking forward to really truly robust a solution-oriented engagement as opposed to mudslinging and exchange of not so good words. But I hope that out of here we'll emerge with some kind of a way forward in terms of how do we ameliorate the governance and leadership challenges that our city is facing, so that tomorrow all of us can be truly proud of being citizens of this beautiful and friendly city. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Lutando Jack for those warm opening remarks, provoking us to, in our discussions, in reflecting, the true nature of what is happening within the city, as well as how these discussions can lead, to the improvement and of lives and livelihood of the residents of the city. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Jack. Without wasting any further time, colleagues, I would therefore like to call upon Dr. Sibanda, who will give us a presentation on the purpose as well as the concept that are really embedded and driving this kind of discussion. So thank you very much. I'd like to call Dr. Sibanda to the stage, please.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you to the Dean, Mr. Jack. I think you have already made my job more easily because you have already summarized the purpose, you've already given this purpose of the day and what we're here about. And so mine will just briefly to dwell on the background, why we are here actually. I mean, we have politicians within the university space. So as one may ask, why is that so? So in brief, this dialogue that we're having today has been inspired by the discussions and events that we have had in the past 2 or so years in the Raymond Mhlaba Center and also within the university here, Nelson Mandela University. They've also been inspired by a book that we have recently published, which published by ECSECC, which I hope you guys have a few copies to share with maybe political leaders at the end of this discussion. So since the Dean has dwelt on the first part on why we are here, maybe I'll just briefly dwell on what this book contains so that at least you know what is there. So it's simply titled Placing the Smart City, Innovation, Infrastructure and Inclusive Urban Development in South Africa. So it is a product of years of research on how place-based institutions such as universities and medical centers, which are in short known as EDS and MEDS. So how these can play a pivotal role in the growth and development of the cities where they are located. So for instance, Nelson Mandela University is located within the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. So it should have an influence, it should have an impact on its neighbors, on the communities around. maybe this is evidence of that we see here today. So why are universities and medical centers given that task beyond what they are mandated to do already? One of the simple reasons is that these cannot easily relocate. You know, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, VW, they are always looking for comparative and competitive advantages. If tomorrow it do not provide the environment that they need, they can relocate to any place or to any country. But for a university, for a hospital, that is almost impossible. They may expand, but to move completely, that is not usually the case. So universities and hospitals, they are embedded in place, they are anchored in place, therefore they have an interest in place. So it is an opportunity for the city and for all stakeholders to take that opportunity and use these people who, or these institutions that are embedded, that have an interest, that cannot relocate. Otherwise, they'll also die with the place if they do not contribute to its growth and development. So that is mainly what this book contains. So it says placing the smart city. So when you talk of the smart city, some people will think of technological innovations and implementation and stuff. Of course, it dwells on that a lot. However, the establishment of smart cities depends on more than mere implementation of new technologies. The technological infrastructures being introduced need to be embedded in the quest for or in support of new, more effective and efficient forms of urban governance, which I think today is going to be discussed here. How we can have good governance, how we can have good leadership within our metro. Okay, so this raises important questions around the politics of infrastructure, including how the promise of infrastructure can shape developmental narratives and the kinds of impacts that may be produced in people's lives by the particular approach adopted. So in other words, who is included, who is excluded from such investments? What kind of development objectives are they likely to be delivered by these initiatives? So one of the main arguments that we forward in this book is that this is sustained in the various essays that you will find contained there, is that rethinking development in the South African city demands a re-establishment of the urban core. There's been a lot of flight from inner cities, flight and urban sprawl. So yet we are arguing that developing the inner cities can bring back, can revive the cities and urban growth. So this should be undertaken not only from the point of view of its cultural feel, negating its old colonial character and exclusionary dynamic, but also in relation to the capacity of these areas to symbolize rebirth and economic regeneration. So this necessarily entails a re-engagement at the center that projects a vision of newness and hope for a genuinely post-colonial future. The book also calls for a greater appreciation of how intertwined national leaders in South African cities are, how critical they've become for the new conversation to occur between various stakeholders, between universities and surrounding communities. The time is gone for university, time is past for university to remain as ivory towers that are only enclosed into themselves and not care about what is happening in the community. So the university cannot remain as an enclave within the city, but to be relevant to place and society. It should participate, it should be responsive to the daily struggles of the people. Today is evidence of that, as we're all gathered here, that Nelson Mandela University is an engaged university. As we come together to engage, to discuss, to seek solutions to the challenges that we encounter, the university and indeed other stakeholders cannot stand aloof. Yet it is self-evident that our city is going through some form of turbulence. Through today's dialogue, we hope that the metro will benefit, but ultimately, we hope that the people of this metro and beyond lives will change for them. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sibanda, who is a postdoctoral research fellow from independent consultant in the Nelson Mandela University. Thank you very much for those insightful opening for us. The book that Dr. Sibanda was referring to, this is the book. It's a co-publishable on the ECSECC website for free download. We've also brought in a few copies that we would like to give, some of, our attendees. So thank you very much to Dr. Sibanda for that. So we'll then now move to the core of this dialogue, and I will hand over to my dear colleague Sakina, who will then take us through the next discussions, which I think we've all eagerly been waiting for. So thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and to everybody watching from afar as well. I think I have a bit of a problem because I've got a lapel mic and I can sense a bit of feedback, so I'll try and keep this brief. Thank you so much for having me here in Nelson Mandela Bay. And this is one, I must say, that I particularly have been watching with great interest for quite some time, given that there has been this prediction for a very long time that South African politics would be moving towards coalitions. And we had this metro. Some of us may have forgotten that we had the city of Cape Town was run, by coalition back in the day when you had the ANC and the then New National Party. And they were in coalition, and the DA subsequently took over and never looked back from there. But who knows, that might still change, but that is the reality that we are faced with. But the point is that we have to talk about coalitions, because this is seemingly, if the latest election results are anything to go by from 2021, then the electorate is trying to tell the politicians something, but whether they are listening or not is another story altogether. And this is what we are going to talk about today. These coalitions in a city like Gqeberha, in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, how have these coalitions worked? Or have they worked at all for the citizens? And if they haven't, why haven't they? And I think speaker after speaker has indicated that we are practically going to try and find some form of solution, maybe just a way forward, a first step, if we will. But the reality is that things cannot continue as they are. I must just say, I need to basically tell you guys that I can't see. And that's because I put the wrong contacts in my bag. So I'm basically just trying to focus as best as I can. So apologies for that. But let me also just extend my thanks to the University of Nelson Mandela Bay, because this is, of course, a very important subject. And I think this is where institutions of higher learning should position themselves when we talk about the agency of the people. One of the reasons why people seemingly have no agency is because we don't include them. We don't educate them. And today, a lot of what goes wrong or where people miss out on opportunities is not because they're not interested, it's because they don't have access to information. So institutions of higher learning have an absolute responsibility to the communities in which they reside. And I think I need to applaud the institution for taking this step and making sure that this particular conversation happens and that they are part of this conversation in trying to find a solution. With that said, thank you so much to the Dean of Students, Mr. Lutando Jack, for having me here this afternoon. Also, Dr. Francis Sibanda, the wise words, appreciated. Madam Program Director, thank you so much through your organization as well for sponsoring this particular event. SANGOCO, who will also give us a few words later on. And thank you to each and every one of you who's present today. So now, for the fun part, the sparring, let's welcome onto the platform that is so beautifully set out for them from the Freedom Front Plus, Mr. Roderick Vensenye. Please, you will tell me how to say it. I will ask you in a little while. My apologies if I get your names wrong. Please just take a seat. From the ACDP, Mr. Lance Grootboom. The EFF, represented by Ntombizanele Mali. We also have from the DA. The DA is represented this afternoon by Mr. Mhlaba. Defenders of the People, we have Mr. Simpiwe Mhlaba. Mr. Mhlaba with us? DOP? All right, I'll just make a note of that. But also the PAC with us this afternoon. I'm not sure if it's Bassi or Basi. Basi, Kamana. Basi, good afternoon. The Patriotic Alliance is Marlon Daniels. And finally, from the ANC, Ms. Eugene Johnson. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm missing 3 people. ACDP, not here. UDM. All right, but thanks so much to those who have attended this afternoon. So just a few reflections as we start this conversation. And driving from the airport, as you know, I've done so many times, one of the things that struck me is, of course, the condition of the road, because that's the first thing that you basically hit as you get into the city. And I was having a conversation with Dr. Sibanda, who picked me up at the airport, and basically just reflecting on the state of this city, because it's reflective of what's going on in most parts of the country, unfortunately. But then the question we came to was, if someone came to your house and they were critical of the state and the condition of your house, wouldn't you be mad about that? If they said your house is dirty, your house is ugly, your house is falling apart, wouldn't you take that personally? Which then brings us to the question about the political representatives. When people, not only within the metro, but outsiders coming in, make those remarks about what is not right and what is wrong and the regression in certain aspects in the city. Do you not take it personally? I see some do, some don't, which is fine because we'll reflect on that. And then just looking more generally at what's been happening. So according to the 2021 annual report of the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality, which was signed by you, Ms. Eugene Johnson, the annual water losses remained at a high of 40%. 40%. And this is a metro where we're talking about averting day zero when it comes to water. Yet we're talking about 40% of losses. How is that even acceptable? Where's the outrage from the residents of the city? So 40%, mayor signed off on that, former mayor now. And what that translates to is 43.349 million liters of water at a cost of 214.7 million. That's just water lost in a metro that doesn't have water. Then, according to Treasury, 11% of the metro's water was lost to theft, inaccurate reading and other technical problems, and 29% of water lost to leaks. Are we still not ashamed? Are we starting to feel something at this point? Not. I'm just gauging the temperature of the elected representatives. So we move on. So then you have a situation whereby people are struggling with water. Gift of the Giver steps in and they go and, you know, dig a borehole there at what's the TB hospital called, Jose Pearson. And again, you should be ashamed. And not just you, but everybody at all levels of government should be ashamed. Are we feeling it? Not yet. Okay. All right. Then we look at some of the public facilities in the metro. You go to the hospitals, Doranginza, Livingston, and I have the unenviable task of having to report about these things every day. You know, when I open my radio show, which is an update show on news events, every day it's like, can it get any worse? Because it's just one disaster to the next. So here you have a situation where there are poor resources on various levels. You have pregnant women unattended to for weeks at times. And if you want the evidence, I can give you the evidence in case you want to dispute it. And there are lots of articles on file. I can give you those as well in case you haven't seen them. So if you don't believe me, I have the evidence to give to you. Then you have also the issue of crippling staff shortages. And again, it's amazing how quickly we can act against staff when they are out of line, but we don't act against those who make sure, who actually fail to ensure that these facilities are up to scratch and are actually fit for purpose. But that's another conversation. And then in August, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases declared the outbreak of a rare bacterial infection in hospitals in Nelson Mandela Bay due to suboptimal infection prevention and control measures. In other words, it is preventable. We're still not ashamed. Okay. And then we look at one of the stories that I had to report on again this week, which was about the killing of 8 people in a shooting rampage in KwaNobuhle. And this is just one in a long line of reports where people are just indiscriminately mowed down. You then look at what's happening with one of the points Prof made, Dr. Sibanda, about manufacturing, which was at one point the pride and joy of the Bay Area. What's happening to that? The unacceptably high levels of unemployment. You have housing backlogs that are just exacerbated every day. And we can go on and on and on because there are so many examples. But what is becoming acutely clear in Nelson Mandela Bay when we talk about the inequality in South Africa is you look at what's happening between the rich and the poor. And it is very stark in this particular metro. So what is being done about that? And this is where we have to ask the question about the coalitions and their relevance and whether they actually are delivering for the people of this metro. And whether or not that delivery is taking place is, of course, a question of, one could argue, political maturity on the parts of all of you representing political parties in this metro. And of course, the very real question of your own intentions as representatives of the people and careerism. Are you here to serve the people of Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, or are you here to serve yourself? So these are the questions, I think, that will help us to address some of the issues that we are faced with here in Nelson Mandela Bay. So I'm going to start, let me start at a point. Mr. Marlon Daniels there at the end, only because you are strategically positioned, so I can start from one end to the next. Why are you in council?
Let me first take this opportunity, Sakina, to thank the university for hosting us. This is very important. And everybody has already covered and thanked all the role players and stakeholders. But from the side of the Patriotic Alliance, thank you for this platform. You see, on a few occasions, I just lost count of how many times you ask, are you guys still feeling it? Are you not feeling it yet? Are you ashamed? Are you not ashamed? And at the back end, you ask, are you here for yourself? Are you here for the people? Let me start with your last question. No, we are not here for the people. We are here for ourselves. And let me qualify that. You see, there are some people in this council who has never made provision for themselves, their loved ones, and their dependents. And this is a ticket to a salary. Now, I know there's already some people feeling uncomfortable here, but I'm coming to them because I need to make an example. I was approached, me personally, and said, Marlon, please, I need your vote. I must become the mayor. I cannot survive on the salary of an ordinary PR councillor. Now, that by itself covers your question extensively. Another example, there are some people who came here to Nelson Mandela Bay to represent their parties as councillors with the hope of being elected as the mayor. And when they found out that they have lost the race to become the mayor in Nelson Mandela Bay, They left and then they go to the province to go and work there because there's more money there than as a local PR councillor. So to answer you, even Mhlaba Banga asked me to make him the mayor. And I quote, because Helen Zeller said, she is sick and tired of topping up my salary every month. I must now become the mayor, close quote. Now, that is the biggest problem that we have. And it's on the strength of what I am saying. And it's there. When he did not become the mayor, he went to the province. Now, it's factual. I'm not fabricating stories. So to me, it is indicative that yes, we are not here for the people, but for our own pockets. Now, when you talk about the challenges of water, the water losses, the theft thereof, the mismanagement thereof, and the failure to ensure that our dams do not run dry. I'll tell you who's at blame here. Everybody. No matter who's heading up this coalition, because you see, the fights start within coalitions. Then the coalition transforms to just a platform where there's a collision. Person and person colliding, parties and parties colliding. There's no coalition here. There's collisions that take place every day behind closed doors. Because people want to fool people, and people, our electorate, are sick and tired because everybody come and recycles their manifestos year after year or term after term. But they are saying the same thing. So why are we faced with the water crisis in Nelson Mandela Bay? When the DA was in power and I was part of that coalition with the first coalition of local government, we were sitting at around 38% water losses. It has not changed much. And you know why? Because if you look, you have to turn your gaze now to the budgets. And if you look at the budgets, and you look at the people in charge of the budgets who manipulate the fact that politicians must not interfere in administration. So the officials who get big flat screen TVs at night dropped off at the houses are involved with the service providers who are supposed to fix the leaks.
Okay. And we'll come back to the leaks.
Thank you.
But you made it clear why you are here. And I'm going to run through everybody else. Just, if you could just tell us, I beg your pardon, why are you here?
Good day, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will just maybe not beg to differ. We just came last year in November in local government from a Freedom Front side. And when we came in there last year, November, we found that many from the Democratic Alliance, as well as all the other political parties participating here today, were in council. To my dismay, from a Freedom Front side, the two of us that came in, I asked myself the question from a Freedom Front side, what did all the parties do when they were in there? How was we passing the buck on that who did whatever did who? Who was the mayor and who took over? My question when I came in there, my question was, didn't this political parties that is there for plus minus 20 to 30 years, didn't they come up with a solution or a joint decision making? Didn't they ask themselves, why am I blaming now the A party and A party is blaming B party and B party is blaming C party? We're coming here today and we are telling each other what I supposed to be getting, what I supposed to be, and whatever it may be. As a Freedom Front Plus, we say at the end of the day that we were very disgruntled up to this moment, 9 months down the lane. Nothing is happening. We want to say at the end of the day is that We are shocked that nothing has happened in this metro when we are there. From the Democratic side, from the Northern Alliance, from all the political parties around here, they have done bugger all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sakina. I like your questions. And I wish all of us, starting from the UDM, the PAC, and all that, we were going to be excused. And then ask the ANC, why have you destroyed our underground infrastructure? Why have you destroyed our hospitals? Why have you destroyed our electric system? Why have you, but can I speak? Can I speak?
Can we please give the speaker an opportunity to tell us why he's here? Thank you. Yes, all right. But can we please listen to him? May we? Thank you.
And we're at university, a place of tolerance for ideas. And we're supposed to ask them why they've done that. Yesterday, one of our colleagues, pharmacist, told me that in Doranginza, Councillor Tsepo Ndwalaza was left and went home with needles in his hand before he died. He had a hole here, not because a Livingston does not have good specialists, the ones who serve in private hospitals, but exactly what you have said, that there is no caring government that provides a conducive environment for patients to live. And that's a danger of the health system. Doranginza provincial have been destroyed by the government. Why we here? Why we here, Sakina? And why government and local government collapse? It's because of a similar thing like populist who give you sugar, who gives you sugar. You know, sugar tastes very nice, but the consequences of eating sugar are very dangerous. Local government need people who are not going to make noise, but people who are going to put content into building a developmental state. The quality of that conversation, whilst we deal with broader and difficult problems that our city is, it's what you get in council. This individual in council, when he was there, he was the most destructive, rude individual who never made a contribution, who never made a single contribution for building a developmental state. We are here as a democratic alliance to get things done. Since we took over this city in 2016, under the then Mayor Ethel Trollip, we turned this city to a construction site. We made sure that we fixed the roads, we fixed the potholes. We got a more than 350 million rand in windfall that was taken from Johannesburg because of lack of implementation and given to us because what we were doing, we were getting things done. When I took over, when I took over, let me just deal with populists. Sakina, I've been in politics for quite some time as a young man from the Congress of South African Students, and I went to Parliament. When I knew that this city was getting destroyed, I came back, sacrificed everything, and become an ordinary councillor here. I left. In 2019, I had to go and lead the party in Bishop. When the city was collapsing, I then came back again, and I became a mayor in the city. When I took over this city, the same report that you're talking about, the 40% water leaks, they could not even finish Nokhetart. When we took over, we developed phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, under the leadership of this municipality. Under the national government, they can't finish phase 4. When I was a mayor, I gave them an ultimatum to say phase 4 must be finished. This mayor failed to finish what I've started under my budget. Last week,
So why are you here?
last week, you made Kwanobuhle. It's facts. I give facts here. Kwanobuhle, we were told that they are not going to have water. When I took over just in a year, I gave them 6 months. They said it's going to take 12 months. I said to the official, it can't. In 6 months, we're able to connect the pipeline in Stanford Road in order to avoid people not having water. What did she do? Because I budgeted 1/3 of the budget to water intervention. What did she do? She did not implement. More than 400 million rand have been turned back to National Treasury.
Please go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Sakina. I'd like to thank the university for the invite to actually come and share as a political party what it is that we have to offer in the current politics of Nelson Mandela Bay. I'd also like to thank you as well for actually hosting us here. Your question asking why am I in council, I have found it to speak quite deeply to me because I have been a resident of Nelson Mandela Bay. I come from Ward 50 in Kwalanga, and I believe that I'm here because of the people of Nelson Mandela Bay who voted and entrusted the economic freedom fighters to become part of council where they can have representatives who'll be able to bring forward their challenges, who'll be able to bring forward their daily sufferings or struggles that they encounter. I'm here particularly because we have residents that have to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning because they're not able to get water during the day. If they miss that 2 a.m., after 4 a.m., they no longer have access to water for the entire day, while there's schools running, while there's also people that need to get to work, and right through the day, water is a necessity. I'm here because of the residents of Ward 52 in Bayland, whose motions have been passed in council. However, those motions have not yet been implemented due to the fact that we have power dynamics, we have politicians or political parties that are here solely because they are into power politics and are not after the interests of the people or service delivery. You will find that positions have become the order of the day within council where we never get to even pass. At times, we're not even able to sit due to these struggles where you do not know who is going to be conducting. You do not know whether the speaker of council is in court or whether they'll be attending council. I have become a representative of the economic freedom fighters, particularly as a young woman, where we are struggling to find space as young women in Nelson Mandela Bay within leadership, within political parties. But I do think I do thank the economic freedom fighters for the policies in which they implement a 50%, where in the event there's more females, we occupy that space. So I would like to say that I would love to see that happen within Nelson Mandela Bay because we are transforming, we are growing, and I would like to think that as South Africans, we would like to see us empower young women so that we are able to take through the legacy of making sure that the city is run smoothly moving forward for generations to come. So I'm here because I've been elected by the residents to come and become a part of a representative that speaks for their rights, that speaks towards services towards them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Sakina. I, Basikaman, the member of the PAC of Azania, we are here for the essence of local government, which is service delivery. That's why I'm here to offer quality services to the residents of this metro. I will, however, not enter the stage of political beauty pageancy because of the topic. It speaks on itself. It's on leadership and on good governance. On leadership, I subscribe from the concept of true leadership demands a complete subjugation of self, absolute honesty, integrity, uprightness of character, fearlessness, courage, and above all, a consuming love for one's people. We are here for that. We are here to serve the people having integrity, wherein we will need to uproot the cancer that has destroyed the fabric of the society, which is called corruption. Corruption, no political party, no individual. It's the politicians, the administrators, the residents will enter the stage of corruption. Therefore, it means that it needs our own collective effort to uproot it. We are here for good governance, wherein we need to observe the three pillars of democracy: consultation, mandate, and accountability. We, as the coalition government, what we need to do with whoever we are, it is to serve the people, not to impose ourselves on other people, wherein we need to discuss matter, everything in a more matured way, so that we can arrive to decisions that will help the metro. I think as the coalition government, whichever side it is, will need again some deadlock breaking mechanisms where we'll need to have the mediators amongst ourselves, simply because the political infighting has got a tendency of turning that council into an altar daycare center where people cannot come to matured decisions. We need to understand, as coalition partners, all of us who are here as politicians, we need to balance the issue of giving and taking with our eye on the people who need the services, instead of being involved in a political mud-smearing exercise. We are all responsible for the mess that we find ourselves in this metro. Therefore, it needs from us political maturity here and stop blaming a blaming game, because it does not send us anywhere. Now we are like people that in that council, wherein we don't want any progress in anything. The PAC is in that council because it represents progress as opposed to decadence. We are here for that. And in the directorate that we serve, we have proved ourselves. We are serving the people, no matter a person is in other political party, because in the eyes of the PAC, we don't see political parties. We see people. We see residents in the metro. I think if we can achieve that, this metro will be fine again. And it is also plain dishonesty for us to be told that it is because of the coalition government that this metro is in a mess. That is lies. These things have been coming all along. Now they have arrived. We also need, as politicians, to strike the balance between administrators and the politicians there. We are not opposing forces. We are not enemies. That is now the directors as well as the politicians. We are not enemies. To stop the cancer of corruption, it is important for us to conduct lifestyle audits from the politician to the executives. By so doing, we will be able to see where does this money for water has ended to. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Shekina, and I think good afternoon to all the attendees. I'm going to ask you a question straight. I'm not going to do what Comrade Mhlaba, he should not actually sit here. He's not in local government. He should first go and answer the question on the accidents that he made before he says anything. But I thought you would ask the question, Eugene, why have your party placed you in this municipality? Because to us, it's different. We don't go into local government. We are deployed into local government. And because of the agenda that the ANC have, which is a developmental agenda that should ensure that service delivery is accelerated, crime is eradicated, the plight of the poor is addressed, they identify their candidates and place them. And their deployment is not refused. Instead, you go and implement the mandate that is given to you. Should the mandate, if the mandate is not implemented, you report back as to why. And there are many reasons. And I'm not going to speak on the water crisis, as you said, we are going back to that because we all know you can lie to people once or twice, but you cannot lie to people all the time. And if it means today, we must tell people what the real truth is upon the water crisis and the water losses and the aging infrastructure. We'll do that. But I'm not going to do what Comrade Mhlaba Banga did, because that is a sign of poor leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sakina, and good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone who's here. Thank you to NMU for hosting us. Interesting views and responses. And Sakina, we are going to be repeating the same thing. And I think that Malon would have been different from the responses that have been put before you. And I'll jump into the bandwagon, but this is what I'm going to say and give it to you because already time, has been used up in this bickering and whatnot forth. The United Democratic Movement is in the Council of Nelson Mandela Bay because we want to put people first. You put people first who are downtrodden, those who live in shacks, because we understand firsthand what it is to be in a one-room shack with no electricity and no water and no sanitation. We want to put people first and eradicate the bucket system that currently exists in the Nelson Mandela Bay, which is very demeaning, and it is, it is against the human rights. Even the UN, or we are going to be charged for that because we are actually trampling upon the rights of our people. We are here in council to speak for the voices that are voiceless, that cannot be heard, or voices that have been shunned. We want to speak for the LGBTI community, whose rights continuously, are put at the backdrop of every conversation when it comes to human rights, even though those rights are enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa and they're protected. We want to speak for the disabled, for the people who are living with disability in this metro, from a point of employment in them receiving receiving the services that they must receive, because it is their right to get service delivery. We want to speak for those young kids who go to school, but they're scared because this metro, thugs are running rampage. Kids are being killed, and electricity shocks are choking our children because there's illegal connections that are happening. That is why we are in council and many other things. But what is important is that we are here to make sure that we depoliticize politics in government. Because the greatest problem that we have is that we have officials who are politicians. We have officials who report to politicians and they've got allegiance to politicians. That's what we want to do, because if you take out politics out of administration, then we're able for council to resolve on issues of service delivery. Then they take that mandate and go and implement it. Because at the end of the day, we can sit here as politicians and say all we want to say, but who are the real people who are implementing service delivery at the bottom? It is those officials that are employed who have got a social contract with the Nelson Mandela Bay. We have a social contract with our people to make sure that everything that has been passed on their behest happens in this council. And that is why, as a United Democratic Movement, we are in this council. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's the longest you are going to speak for the rest of the evening. Let me also just invite from the ACDP, I believe Lance Fruitboom is now here. Please come up, sir. And I want to talk about the amount of energy that is expanded by yourselves in council in actually dealing with issues that affect people on the ground. At the meeting, the sitting that ousted Eugene Johnson as mayor, you spent 16 hours because that was clearly very important to you. How many hours have you spent in the last 2 months? Let me start with you, Lance Fruitboom, talking about the water crisis in Nelson Mandela Bay in one sitting. What was the longest you've ever expanded in talking about one of the issues that affect the people of this metro?
Okay, good evening. Good evening, Sakina, and good evening to the audience here today. Sakina, to be honest with you, we hardly debate issues, to be honest, when it affects the residents of Nelson Mandela Bay. What we do is we fight over silly things in council, things that doesn't make sense. And when we do have to speak on these items, we are not talking into it. And that is the problem. The water crisis are very big in the city. We are losing a lot of water. I think we're sitting at 40% of our water that we are losing through water leaks. And we are not winning that war. And this is not something that has happened yesterday. It is something that has been going on for a very long time. Our infrastructure is basically weak, and it's no longer strong enough because we haven't maintained that infrastructure. And we are not debating these things. We are currently sitting with a debtors book that is sitting at 3 billion. That is to do with water charges. Over the last 5 years, it has grown to 10 billion. Because we have moved from Part B of our water restrictions to Part D. Because we have been punishing residents, but yet water's running down the streets. We are very slow to get to that water that's running down the street, but we are very quick to punish our own residents. That's why the debtors book is sitting at 3 billion in 1 year, 40% of that water charges. Now that's a concern. So those are the things that we should debate for hours and come to a resolution that makes sure we address it, and we're not doing that.
But you don't. So why don't you? And this speaks to everybody in council. This is not directed at one party. And there is a coalition here, which means multiple parties. Why are you not? If you know that that is what you're supposed to be doing, why aren't you doing it?
Sakina, this is the thing in council. To understand, council works with numbers. You only speak according to your vote. It's very important to understand. The Democratic Alliance can speak for 35 minutes. The ANC can speak for 30 minutes. The smaller parties here can only speak for 2 or 3 minutes. And we've got so much solutions to the problems, but we are not allowed at time to speak. And we're not here to blame one another, but at the end of the day is, if you look at our council meetings, the chaos in that meetings are coming from our bigger parties. The ANC has been very difficult. That's why we couldn't remove them. It took us 18 hours to remove them, which was a motion that should have been dealt off with in an hour. So when you deal with items that is affecting residents, it's the same. I just came now, Sakina, from a council meeting, from a committee meeting. That's why I was late. We were debating the issue of electricity. We are currently buying from ESCOM 4 billion rand worth of electricity. We are not even making that money back. We are running at a loss of 1 billion.
Why?
Electricity losses through
Why?
illegal connections and tampering of our system. The businesses in the city, Sakina, is threatening us because they're telling us, if we continue to go on this slope, businesses like VW, Espen, those big ones, they will have to close down because of load shedding and because of our losses. And we are fighting with one another while we know if those businesses close, how many other businesses will also close? And the unemployment rate is already high. We should come up with solutions to say, how do we address these issues of electricity losses?
Now, speaking of addressing the issues, what is the policy position from a coalition perspective? Can someone tell us, either coalition, past, present, what is the policy position regarding you can take water or electricity? Either one.
Sorry, Sakina, I can come in here. We requested as from Freedom Front Plus to establish a ad hoc committee concerning, that's a couple of months back, a committee. It was sent through, but it wasn't addressed or even sent to us what is happening, that you can at least have an ad hoc committee for water. Not at all. The ANC, as they had neglected that call or that answer. And up to this moment, we didn't get an answer about the ad hoc committee up to this moment. Thank you.
So there's talk about the establishment of an ad hoc committee. You all come here off, an election with a manifesto in which you made certain promises to the electorate. And when you decide then, because of how the votes stacked up, there's now a coalition government that needs to take the city forward. Have you never sat down to think of what is the policy here? Because if you are coming from differing ideological positions, policy perspective, strategic directives, how then are you supposed to address this thing? Or are those not conversations you are having?
Yeah, Sakina, the only coalition that everybody can tell you that when we get to a coalition, we have a coalition agreement. It was signed live on TV. You outline a program of things that we have to focus from good governance, from service delivery, and also fighting corruption.
But what does that mean?
No. But
practically, what does it mean?
You are asking policy. I'm telling you about policy. Now, this is the only thing that is important, because if you do not have a Bible that guides you on how you're going to run a government, exactly you're going to fail.
So you don't. Are you then saying that you have never sat down to thrash out the policy position?
We have sat down to trash down a policy position on the areas in which, as a government, we have to address.
But not the actual policy itself in terms of how are we going to do A, B, C, D?
Let me tell you, we passed a policy position on how to deal with the water crisis here in the city. One, and how to deal with the issue that relate to service. The biggest problem in this city in terms of water leaks, as we speak right now, do you know that there are no contracts to fix water leaks? There's no companies that are fixing water leaks as we speak because they failed. When I took over the government, we had 20 billion rand. That was going to be taken over by the National Treasury. When I arrived, there was not even a contract for bulbs. Somebody was appointed. He had no power to put one bulb I asked why. They said he does not have money to do that. And I said, remove that person. They said it's going to take us to court. And I said, if he cannot fix one part, we cannot afford to go to court. We remove that person. We fix street lighting here because we put up a process and policies that relate to implementing street lighting, water problem, fixing potholes and all that. When we govern, we make sure that these things are done. You need to have a dashboard to understand how many water leaks do you have. We understood how many water leaks and how are they going to be fixed. And we fixed more water leaks for a month more than the African National Congress
So
have done.
the question still remains. I just want to, if I may just put you on pause as the EFF, because if I understand the EFF's position correctly, you are not in coalition with anyone. You vote according to whatever it is that you're voting according to at any given point in time. But I want to go to those who are in coalition because I'm trying to understand what sort of conversations are you having? Are you in coalition or are you in collusion with one another to a certain effect?
Sakina, I think very important of coalitions. I always say this. When you go into a partnership of a coalition partnership, it's important that you know who your partner will be. Values becomes critically important. Whenever you go into a coalition, now we've got a big one, we've got a 9-party coalition. You must understand that all these parties don't have the same ideology. Their values are not the same. They're not standing on the same policy. There are differences. And then there are guys within the coalition that are just interested in themselves. They're not even representing the people, they just talk for themselves. And when you are in these coalitions, it becomes very difficult because what happens is the numbers are important. Like for us now, we're sitting at 61. If one pulls out, the whole thing collapses. So then you have this kingpin status, whatever you call it. So that one will threaten you if it's to do with maybe suspending somebody, appointing somebody, or if it's just giving a position to that person, you will be threatened. Now you don't talk about electricity losses. You don't talk about water losses. You don't talk about the cleanliness of the city. You spend hours talking about positions, who you can move where, to protect your interest. And that is the difficulty of coalitions because you will have a partner that really genuine wants to rebuild the city. But then you have one partner that wants to make sure that for this 5 years, I must make sure that I'm sorted. He forgets about the people who voted for him.
Okay.
And that is our biggest problem.
But you remain in that coalition for better or for worse, that collusion that's happening.
No, Sakina, no, you get it wrong. Sakina, you know, you must no. If that's the situation, obviously it becomes a matter of principle. Do you stay in a coalition where you see people are going another way? Or do you manage that coalition for the interest of the residents?
How are you serving the interests of the residents?
Let me explain this. There's one mandate, is to remove the ANC from power. Why? Because the ANC has been a problem, actually in cancer for the last 27 years because of corruption. Now, the only way to put the ANC out of power is to join forces. But the problem is the joining of forces, you might have somebody in a party that has no interest to serve the residents. And that's where the stumbling block becomes. Now you need to weigh it up. And we weigh it up to say, what is the interest of the city compared to this one individual that is difficult? If the interest of the city outweighs the interest of that individual, we work hard to make sure we rebuild the city.
Okay, so you've basically affirmed what I've said. You are colluding to bring down another party, not necessarily coming together to better the lives of the citizens of this particular city. But EFF, and then I'll come to ANC. No, Mr. Banga, EFF.
Thank you so much, Sakina. You actually took the words right out of my mouth when I wanted to outline exactly what is governing these coalitions currently, and you find that there's so much instability within Nelson Mandela. It is purely positions, and it is purely demands. And if my demand is not met, then nothing else can move in the city. If we do not remove the city manager by tomorrow, then nothing can go right within the city, regardless of whatever lengths that people will have to take. For instance, with the water leaks or any plumbing matters for that matter, the EFF has consistently been asking for enforcement. Hence, you'll find former mayor Mhlaba talking about contracts not being in place. We wouldn't have that issue had we had permanent staff within those offices, because we'd have people stationed in particular places where there is a leak. They are quick to respond to that fault or that problem that is there. However, because there are people, or because of a matter that was mentioned by the UDM, where they said we've got politicians, we've got officials that are within the pockets of officials who somehow also collude with the tendering businesses. So it depends on who gets the contract and who lends the biggest bag. That is why there's a problem with service delivery within Nelson Mandela, because we do not want to insource. That is why we are having issues of vandalism. When you go to Ellen Richol, you'll find Ellen Richol is to pits there in Ward 48. In Ward 48, it brick by brick right in front of the police station, purely because there is no proper governance. Had we enforced securities, we'd have people stationed there to guard those premises. But because we need to outsource and give someone a tender for that security or safety and security within Nelson Mandela, we suffer such consequences. So it's purely because of positions. And I believe up until, as Ulansa said, someone gets to a principled place where they actually think about why they did this in the first place, why they became leaders in the first place. Because I do not want to believe that initially when they started joining these political parties, their ultimate goal was to become a mayor. But up until the conscience speaks to the person, then we are certainly not going to be going on. And we're going to be having the same issue we've been having since 2016. Or 2018 rather, where Athol Trollip was removed. Then we had UDM and ANC coalition, and UDM ANC coalition that also fell through. Now we had an ANC coalition where the smaller parties, or even most probably the bigger party itself, had issues that fell through. We are now having a DA coalition where there are still matters that they are not agreeing upon, that due to these positions or due to demands that are being made where we should remove particular people because there are people that need to be given those certain positions. Cater deployment is also one of those. Cater deployment within, I would like to state, has been one of those problems where we've got officials that are not qualified or are not even capable of doing the work in those positions. But because they have been promised, because they are loyal, they are then rewarded their loyalty with these deployments. Then we have a problem, because I hear the mayor mentioned an issue of the ANC deploying them here. Then I would really be worried, because as the EFF, we had been speaking highly, requesting the ANC to remove the mayor. It had been said by CIC also in one of our press briefings to remove the mayor, and that was our only condition. However, the issue here we find is that because she had been deployed and it was a matter of cadre deployment, it became very difficult, even though they could see that she was overwhelmed and that the city was actually degenerating, or the situation within council was degenerating. So up until we move back, we reflect, I think, each political party that is in a coalition currently and see how they are serving their people within that coalition, then I think they need to rethink these agreements that former Mayor Mhlaba is speaking about here, because really it is colluding.
Ms. Johnson? And I think also, just as a segue into your response, you were upfront and saying that you've been deployed into this position.
Yeah.
But how does that help the people of Nelson Mandela Bay? Because are you answerable to them, or are you answerable to the ANC first?
The ANC, let me start by this, is a caring organization. Is an organization for the people, by the people, Shekina. That is why the ANC has got branches. It has got membership. It has got people that they account to. It has got alliance partners in the form of the COSATU and this South African Communist Party and the leagues. It's an organization, because you are not a person on an island. That is why you have can't you see you have problems here? Shakina, and you've asked, in the ANC, we believe if you ask a question, answer the question. You've asked us, did we have a policy on the water crisis as coalition partners?
Yes.
But unfortunately, you got answers from those that were not in the coalition. Mhlaba Banga is the wrong person to talk here because it's outdated in terms of what happened in the municipality. We sat down, we crafted an agreement as political parties when we took over in November last year. One decision that we took is that the water crisis must be addressed as soon as possible. We identified the issue and we acknowledged that we were in a serious drought and that the drought has been coming on for 7 years and the infrastructure was not fixed for 15 years. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Mhlaba did not build one house, for example. So you had to sit down and this is what you did. And your answer was, did we spend as much time on addressing the water crisis as we did with these political bickering? We had the minister down twice with the World Bank, the Amatola Water Board. Councillors were not there from these opposition parties, were not there. The ANC was there. Patriotic Alliance was there. We were, and he was there, PAC. We sat for 2 days. Not only did we sit for 2 days, we met with communities in the various clusters to speak about the water crisis. We met with them to speak to them on how to save water. We did it as that coalition. And no one's lying here. No one lies. But if you do accidents and you run away, you don't account, you can lie for anything. You just lie. For some people, lying doesn't mean anything. But what Mhlaba does not realize, he's losing integrity by the day. That's why he didn't come back as mayor. You see, Shakina, you see, and that is what we did. He's lying. We realized that we were understaffed at the call center, where the complaints for the leaks has been reported to. We employed 20 call center operators. We boosted that center. Secondly, we employed plumbers. We fixed 5,000 leaks in a week. That's what we did. We did it as a coalition government that were there then. And I'm not going to speak bad about the coalition partners. I will never do that because we were in it together. We made mistakes together. We found the situation as it was. He was the mayor. He did absolutely nothing. He plunged us into the crisis, especially the water crisis, because the MMC for infrastructure then was a DA councillor. It was a Net Lovemore. We had meetings every Monday. And councillor from the Freedom Front is quite correct. We took a decision. You see, some of our councillors here, they're short-sighted and they forget easily. We took a decision in council that we will have a joint operations center that will meet every Monday, that is led by political office bearers of the various parties. It's only one party that attended. It was a Patriotic Alliance, 2 from the DA, and the DOP attended once. So people must not lie here. This is not because what we will never do, this is grandstanding. And for me, for us as the ANC, it means nothing. What we need to do, what we really need to do, and I'm very happy to have heard what our presenter says. We must bring our people back. and interact with them continuously. I think this should happen all the time. It must be bigger so that people hear the truth, but also not hearing the truth only. Also show the people that you want to fix their issues. You want to accelerate service delivery. You really want to show them that you care. Because, and we are not going, Sakina, I'm not going to be in any way saying to you that politics is not, it's the best career that you can ever have if you understand that the career is about giving and not taking. Thank you.
And I wonder how the electorate feels about that, how the citizens feel at this particular point in terms of that delivery. And I'll come to you in just a moment, Basi, because you talk about the infrastructure deterioration in the Bay. And this, I picked up the Herald coming into the airport, ratepayers win big in power tariff ruling. And essentially, and this is a very important ruling, not just for Nelson Mandela Bay, but for the entire South Africa, because what it means is that you will no longer, as a council, be able to pass on whatever happens through your negligence, your inability to maintain infrastructure. You're not going to pass that cost on to the ratepayer anymore. You will have to find a way to deal with it. And I think this is a very important judgment that one would like to see how far it's going to go, because it's not just about Nelson Mandela Bay, it's about the entire South Africa. Basi?
Thanks, Sakina. It seems as if now the PAC is also given the 2 minutes that it gets from the council.
Okay, we'll make it 4.
In the first place, I would like, maybe the former mayor is suffering from a certain bout of amnesia. Former executive mayor Eugene Johnson, maybe she's suffering from a certain bout of amnesia, simply because the PAC in that council, even the DA can agree, has always attended the matters and has always performed on its mandate that is given back. The PAC has been saying, without fear of any contradiction, that we must put the institution first. When we leave it, because that institution has been there and it is going to outlive us. What we need to do, we must leave a legacy, not a tattered legacy, but when we leave it, it must be better than we found it. It is correct, there are poll officials. It is indeed the poll officials who are so corrupt. When you talk about collusion, because I believe in collusion, in a coalition, it is here. It is a collusion between the officials and certain unscrupulous politicians. It is there, it needs to be attended. Again, there is also a lack of will on consequence management. On this water crisis, a certain poll official, wrongly dubbed as an official, was identified as the person was negligent, but there was no action taken against that person. According to Mr. Grootboom, numbers count in that council. A lone voice will not be heard enough. Therefore, it is important now to have some bilaterals amongst each other. And as we are sitting here, I've said, a political beauty pageant amongst us will not help. No lamentations here, trying to outsmart each other. What we need to do, we need to take the searchlight shining inwards. We need an introspection The first question that you asked, it was about introspection. Yes, the house is not right, but I can tell you, if we can change our attitudes and do the right things first, this metro has got a potential. This metro can be the national economic game changer. On two things, as the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, we believe so much on meritocracy as opposed to mediocracy. We are saying that right people should be put in the right jobs, and amongst ourselves, we need to have what we say peer review, where we look at each other, we become a mirror of each other, then we tell things straight without being arrogant, for the betterment of the residents of the metro. Because it is the residents of the metro that matter more than us. Maybe some of us, we behave like this simply because in our homes we get proper services, unaware that one day the poor will have none to eat but the rich. This gathering, Umama Eugene Johnson is correct, it should be done regularly on those three principles of democracy that I spoke about. Consultation, nothing about the residents without the residents. I was moving in the township, I saw there were many basketball pitches in the metro, but the people in the townships are playing netball. It's simply because people are not consulted on what they want. A certain person in a certain corner took upon himself or herself to think on behalf of the people. It is up to you, because indeed we need to be debriefed. We need to unlearn certain tendencies so that we can learn new approaches that can change our metro. Colleagues, we can fight on and fight on. Nothing will change with us fighting. We need to sit down and unite and shape a bright future from the masses, and go to the masses again and listen to the masses what they want, or else, but not even a single political party here never spoke about service delivery. All of us, we promise people about service delivery. Without boasting, once again, the PAC is serving the people in the territory that is leading with pride and with distinction. Thank you.
Sakina. All right, there's a question that you've asked. Why do we spend much more time in council bickering over each other and trying to remove
Positions.
each other in positions? The major issue, council is regulated by rules of council. And the moment you take those rules and put them aside, then you'll start having that problem of having an 18-hour to 20 hours of council meeting because you do not apply the rules of council, meaning that the councils that we currently have, it is not regulated by law. Instead, there are people who are pushing their own mandates and their own selfish interest. That's what put aside. It's the same thing when it comes to governance. When you put aside the Municipal Structures Act, even when employing a city manager in that position, then we have taken the law out of governance, which regulates how you should govern and how you should take services to the people. Once then you start flouting all of those things, you are going to have such problems. Coalitions today, there's nothing wrong with coalitions. It is the future of South Africa, and it's a reality that we should, embed it in ourselves. It is going to happen. 2024, we are going to have provinces going into coalitions, or even national government for that matter. However, what we need a political will amongst ourselves as politicians to be able to say we're here for the people and nothing else. And what then, regulates us or a Bible that we need to follow. It is the law, it is the constitution, it is our acts, our bills and everything that have been put in place. Put those things in front of you and implement. Put your policies, come together, because at the end of the day, my interest and the PSC's interest, the ANC interest and ideologies are different. But there's one thing that brings us together. It is the people of South Africa. It is the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. The moment we put them in front of us and say, we want to serve you, you have voted for us and said, work together, because for us to be here today as coalitions, because the people who are voting for us have said, work together and not in silos. We wouldn't be bickering like this. We would have one government which has all the political parties. In fact, if we had it in us and we had introspected, as PS had said, to say introspect and see if you can't work together. No one should be forcing us to work together, because the people have spoken. The ones that we are saying that we are representing in council or anyway in governance. So that's what we need to do. We need to put the law, and the law should dictate as to how we run things in government. How then do we make sure that the positions do not become a stumbling block in our quest to make sure that services are taken to our people?
Thank you very much. You know, reflecting on all these hours, 18 hours, it's not the first time. We had a similar meeting, it came out 3:20 in the morning also in New Brighton in 2018. It's not the first time. And the problem with all these meetings, you see, people are inspired, those who've lost confidence, by your work and not your words, because we're tired of hearing stories. And when you attend all these meetings, you end up with so much minutes, and then you lose the hours. So, and those are the critical points that we need to roll our sleeves up and get to work. The problem with these tedious meetings and not getting anything done is equally to blame because of stomach politicians, not really politicians, people who has not been working for years, like the Speaker of Nelson Mandela Bay, unemployed for years, and now found a way to come in and not wanting to be a PR counselor where the money is much less, half than a speaker's money. Then you sit with a speaker who's the custodian of council meeting. You sit with a speaker who's a chairperson of council, who does not understand the rules of order, who does not understand the Systems Act, the Structures Act, any acts,
Trying to defend himself.
but only acts up when you have to speak to let people must hear the things that you want them to hear. We've got a useless speaker in Nelson Mandela, but he's got no clue about politics and no heart for the people. You see, there's a big difference. When you come in as a representative in council of your party, you must practice the heart of politics, not the art of politics. So that's the biggest problem that we have here. Active on the 25th between ATMs and shops, dead any other day of the month. Useless, to say the least. So that is to give you my view on why hours are wasted there. There's pensioners who come in as councillors because it didn't make provision for the old day. Now the skin are fighting and they find themselves in the High Court as latest as yesterday. To want to hold and hog onto positions because I didn't make provision for my pension day. That's the problem with these stomach politicians. Now, enough of the hours wasted there. Let me talk about the issue of, I've heard Lance talk about revenue collection, debtors books and so forth, in relation to water, electricity, and then we also touch on non-revenue water because of the leakages. You see what the DA done? Their sister municipality is right next door, Jeffreys Bay, Humansdorp, the Kocha municipality. I remember when Ethel was mayor, they brought an item to council and they said, I stand to be corrected, I think it was 23 million rand, somewhere there on or about. The DA brought, you see, they want to criticize the ANC. The ANC is rotten Yes, of course, we all know that. It's not a secret. But then again, the DA is not better. Now, I tell you what they've done. They bring the item to council and they say, we want to write off the 20-odd million debt of water owed to us by Koga municipality because Koga is also governed by the DA. It was a fight. It was a fight. Then everybody said, no, it cannot be right. Because why must the gogo down the road pay her accounts? And then you find we're going to write off 20-odd million because it's your sister municipality next door. That's one. Also, you see, I hear people beat around the bush. I won't beat around the bush. We're a party of Varit. The officials, I've asked the question many a times for different parties who were in charge. Why don't you remove the likes of Barry Martin? Why didn't you remove the likes of Joseph Tatsiri, who thinks that they are controlling everything? This water nonsense that we face with now, this crisis has been coming on for years. It's not because who is in power now or who was in power last year. It's been there. Day zero has been looming. So what do? I hear now they're talking about nooit gedag. Yay. Nooit gedag. Nooit gedag, that is a water treatment plant. It is not going to increase your dam levels. So treating water is one thing. Getting water to the tap is a different thing. Our dams are low because 40% of the water is non-revenue water is leaked, it's gone wasted. So what do we do about it? Your officials who are supposed to implement, let's look at the KPIs. What have they achieved? Nothing. What's the consequence management? Because you cannot have the same officials in charge of these directorates. Some earning way over R1 million a year. And we are faced with a water crisis when there was no need for us to be faced with it, only if the job was done. I hear about co-governance agreements. Can somebody here please explain to me, how does a co-governance agreement fix the leak in my street? How does these policies fix the leak around the corner from where I live? How does this piece of paper that you are referring to fix the leak? Let's not fool each other here by words.
The buck stops with you all, though.
Yes, so I want to say, you see what's the problem? There is a solution for all these water leaks. Yes, there's ailing infrastructure for many years. That's fine.
It's not fine.
Still,
But carry on.
still less, prioritize better, and fix the ailing infrastructure. They come and they say, no, let us put these things on the meters, flow this water restrictors. A water restrictor, with that flow restricting the flow, has got knock-on effects, and then it pushes back as the laws of science. That's Newton's law. You find then it bursts elsewhere because of the build-up of pressure at the back. There's a lot of issues to consider, but that's a discussion for another day. I believe because of the high unemployment rate in this metro, and because of so many tradesmen in our metro, so many plumbers in our metro, ward-based, they can create jobs for all those plumbers to fix those leaks. If you look at the leaks at the schools, at the hospitals, at government institutions, that contributes to the 40% that we face with now. So if we can create jobs, but no, you know what the officials do? If you look at the budget starts 1st July, talk to me March next year, you're going to see that they do fiscal dumping with the money.
But if you have identified that, you in coalition with the ANC, did you put that on the table? What did your coalition partners say?
There's a big problem. It depends who brings the solution. You are not one of them. And also with your solution, My contractor friends for the evergreen contracts are not gonna get a job. You're taking it away from them, meaning you're interfering with my brown packet that I'm supposed to get for bonus December.
So what's the point of the coalition then? But I hear you, but again, I'm gonna have a word here and then I want to bring in our respondents just to kind of bring us back. I see they are here. Ongamam Timka and Professor Pagama also sitting next to him. So we'll get to them in a little while, just to kind of pull us back to this coalition and whether it's working or not, but more importantly, can we find a way to move forward more progressively?
Thank you very much, Sakina. You know what, when I stand in awe, listening to everyone talking here, we are missing something very, very important. The most important thing we are talking now about water, but we're not talking about the bread and butter issue holistically. The bread and butter issue, where the unemployment, where the man having a piece of bread to eat at home, etc. Sakina, the problem that we've got here among the politicians and in the metro is that when any point or a motion or something is raised, you get shouted and you get booed out of your socks. I raised the point to say that can't we have a joint decision making every decision we can have, and we can fight with our policies afterwards. I was booed off. My question is to each and every political party, and I loved what the PA said, Kamana. The end of the day is that we need to get a solution, like you said. We can start bickering with each other around here. But the problem is if we leave out here, the problem still exists out here, outside, for the very same purpose, for the electorate, for the people, voters into power. The problem is when I go out into any area in the northern areas or anywhere, in the western suburbs, in the townships, and I report a matter, whether it's a leak or whether it's a pothole, you'll get the very same political parties that is there that will take the honor that they did it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
I hear you.
They get the honor
do.
and they get all the luxury. The bottom line today is, and I do what the PA says for the second time saying, let we get a solution among each and everyone. Let we come back to basics. Let we come back and tell each other, listen here, this is not working for the people of the metro.
Yeah.
Let we come together and say, irrespective of what policy you got, what mission and vision you got, let we come together in a, whether it's in a collision, whether it's a commission or whatever you can call it, and get together and come back to the collision and say, this is the way forward for the metro, for the people. People's losing out hope there outside.
Yes.
Over us sitting here. There's stupidity, words coming and nice talking.
I'm glad you recognize that, because when you talk about bread and butter issues and you talk about the high unemployment rate in the Bay, the high unemployment rate is in part because you failed to run the city properly. Why would businesses invest if there's no water? How do you expect them to run the business? Simple thing. So if you fail, where's the jobs going to come from? You are failing to create a conducive environment as a collective. And I'm going to keep stressing that it's as a collective, because there's also a thing about integrity. Because if this thing is not working, I always ask, if I go back to your council meeting minutes right now, will I find your dissenting voice noted somewhere on a particular matter?
Yes.
You see, because nobody here gets a free pass, by the way, nobody. Because if this thing is not working and you are so aggrieved about what is going wrong, why don't you leave? Why don't you vacate the space and say, hey, I tried, but I'm not going to be part of what is going on here. Go out, go and conscientize the electorate so that they know what is going on in here.
Yes.
Sakina,
Sakina.
Sakina, I
Coming
don't
back,
mean to be
Sakina.
rude.
No.
I don't mean to be rude.
No.
There's one party who walked out of coalitions more than once, only one party, and it's the PA for those reasons.
And I'm so glad is that the Freedom Front Plus stood loyal to the coalition up to this moment.
Okay.
Sakina.
Okay. Can I just regain control here? Only because I acknowledged you, and then I want to go to my respondents.
Sakina. And that is why we are saying, we said to the MEC implement Section 12. Because we realized that as the African National Congress, we have ward councillors that must account on the issues that you have raised.
What is Section 12?
Section 12 is a collective mayoral system, because you've heard what councillors, you heard what Marlon, you've heard what Lance was saying here. The ANC is corrupt. Now we are saying to them, to all of them, all right, the ANC is corrupt. That is what you are saying. But now we're saying, let the bigger parties run the municipality together. We say, come, let's work together. Because remember, you don't have ward councillors as smaller parties. The people did not vote for you. Neither did the people vote in big numbers for the two biggest parties.
Yes, they did not give you an overwhelming mandate.
So we are saying because of that, you are saying we corrupt. We are saying you corrupt. We are saying you smaller parties, you're there for the benefit of yourselves. Agree to Section 12. Because in Section 12, you don't have an executive mayor. You have a ceremonial mayor. You have a mayoral committee that is made up of the biggest parties who has got the mandate from the majority of the people of the city.
When did you make that
And you watch
suggestion?
each other,
When did you
who's
make that
corrupt and
suggestion?
who's not.
When did you make that suggestion?
Sakina.
When was that suggestion
They
You
made?
gave
Just
everybody.
No. Hold on. I'm closing this. I just want to know, when was that
March.
suggestion made?
Shakina, it's not even us. It's not even us. SANGOCO came to us. Civil society addressed us. They came to my office when I was the executive mayor. They met with the Democratic Alliance. They've met with the smaller parties. They told us, listen, this coalition of yours are not working. Service delivery is stifled in this municipality. We want Section 12. Then the Democratic Alliance, who's so obsessed with mayorship, says we want an executive mayor. Why? Because of the powers of the executive mayor.
But
And
you-
that the mayor has. Then
You
But
are
you
all
don't- you don't-
obsessed
you
with
don't
the
give
mayorship.
time. You don't
You are
give-
all
that
obsessed.
is unfair. Really
Because-
unfair.
Equally, Ms. Johnson, if you were not obsessed, you would have vacated the space very
Yes,
easily.
exactly.
You are all
Yes.
obsessed. You are all obsessed. You are all obsessed
Sorry,
with power.
Sakina.
All of you are obsessed.
Sorry,
with power.
Sakina. The last one is that the reason is that why the
Mr. Banga was
ex-mayor,
before you.
the ex-mayor wants Section 12. The reason is that's why they're disrupting the council meetings, that days can go on, that they can have Section 12. But I think they are lying. They won't get Section 12. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Banga, and then the respondents.
Sakina, let me give you a context of what the former mayor is saying. It was me and the five-a-side of the DA that went to Oscar Mabuyan and sat with them when Mr. Bobani was breaking down the city. We gave them an offer. This was the offer while Mr. Bobani left. We said the DA wouldn't want to get in government with you and all these parties. Create a Section 79 committees for oversight, as the DA will sit in an oversight arrangement and monitor you. Guess what? The branches of the ANC, they said the DA is setting us up. It wants to monitor us. It was us. The second thing, Sakina, which is a big debate here, is that the mess of coalition government in South Africa is caused by the fact that many people who occupy these positions of responsibilities are not skilled to deal with the challenges that local government face. we
Mm.
still continue with individuals who do not have an understanding how to turn the economy to create work opportunities. We still have irresponsible politicians. You raised one thing that VW told me. VW said, we cannot transport and export our cars because of the invasion in Bayland in Mhlaba. Every time you have an invasion, is that we cannot take the cars out. And who was promoting that invasion? Is the African National Congress.
All right.
In the Ado Road, our citrus industry can't export fruit overseas. Why? Because there's an invasion. Why? When we said there can't be an invasion, there must be stopped the law. Do you know who supported it? Said there must be an invasion. It was the ANC. Kwamataki, black people, middle class people who have built their properties, black people. What the ANC did when we're stopping invasion, they supported it. Who is distracting what here? It's people who do not understand the importance of running the local state. It starts from all of us. But I can assure you, and I'm proud of this, is that in the DA caucus, we select people who help. Even the ANC, Oscar agrees with me, that we want to work with you because your people have skills. They do not have skills.
Mm.
They deploy people who cannot run.
Thank you so much. And welcome to our two respondents, Ongama and Prof. Pagama, just to basically kind of sum up for us what you have heard here this afternoon and what is being said, because, you know, this whole thing, everybody on the stage seems to know what is required of them in order to deliver to the people. But for some reason, it's not happening.
Good evening, Sakina, and the political leaders, as well as the audience. I had an entire presentation prepared, but when I listened, I realized that we don't have a problem of lack of knowledge. So I thought, let me go something different to talk to, but so that I at least reward myself for the preparation. I want to highlight about, I want to highlight, to bring in, because also I must not fail my department, to bring in a little bit of the theory. So there are classical theories of leadership from Aristotle to Machiavelli. And it's interesting, it was playing out as I was listening to the audience. The Aristotelian approach, you know, is derived from theories about philosopher kings. The idea that there is an ideal king or leader who has got certain capabilities, and when they rule, life would be really great. Philosopher kings, and this kept coming up. Mr. Banga just said now they've got skills, you know, and therefore desirable in terms of leading. The other one is what Mr. Malin talked about earlier, about in the final analysis, we get to be here about ourselves. And that's a Machiavellian approach, which says that, in fact, what happens is that, and this is consistent with this idea, that in fact, the problem is power, that power corrupts, and it corrupts absolutely. That even you have people who rise and campaign on the basis that they will bring a better ideal society. But once they get into power, their true colors come up, that they become about themselves. So these are classical theories that we've been debating in political science for centuries. And there's another one, and this one is an indictment on us as a society, around historical causation, that what kind of leaders you have in a particular epoch is a function of what that epoch produces. So we as a society, we live in a period described as a period in which people will be inwardly focused, lovers of self, And so inwardly focused and self-seeking. It is no wonder, if you follow the historic causation theory, that the kind of leaders you can produce are what the society deserves. People who come from the society, who are inwardly focused, who are lovers of self. And I think that leads me to what I thought I would, just to come back to, and not bore people with theory. In fact, let me not do so without starting here. Interestingly, I've got a research I'm doing around alternative institution building from isiXhosa language. And I'm taking a few selected proverbs that tell us what kind of leadership is envisaged by, or in fact, what kind of institutions are envisaged by amaXhosa based on these proverbs. And this departs from this notion of you either have the idealistic approaches as evident in Aristotle, or the Machiavellian approach, which is a realist approach. There's one that says, in fact, so amaXhosa's contribution is that, in fact, whatever behavior that individuals engage in, there's a grander law that works, which comes back to bite them. So Umkhaya, writing about Umbambushe, a poem, Umbambushe injaka lagwada, he writes about how this king allowed a dog to terrorize people. And in the poem, he goes to that Mbambushe is the name of the dog. This dog, the men and women of the village would be sitting around a plant, and this dog comes in and takes what it wants and leaves. And Mbambushe and Ulagwada, the king, would actually be nonchalant about it until the day that Mbambushe beat the king. And the idea here is that failures of bringing about justice have a way of catching up with not that just the perpetrators, but even the indifferent judges and society. And then the other one, akonganga itubula ingeti. This is an idea that says you cannot, when you have power, you misconstrue what having power means, to the extent that you run amok abusing the power. Why? Because akukonganga itubulingeti. At some stage, you're gonna lose the power. And guess what happened last year? We had a former head of state who fired people, imprisoned, and now no power. What did we have in these streets of this Nelson Mandela Bay 3 weeks ago? People were joking around. If you see golf here, hawks, then you people are scared. We had people arrested by the hawks here who used to have power. Now they don't have power, and therefore they are being arrested. So, and the other ones, I mean, there's a few others. Last point that I want to make is that, you see, there's another word that amaXhosa call activists, amachantliziyo, those with a burning heart. That's what we lack. They know the theory, they were talking about the theories of leadership and all of those things, but ubuchantliziyo, abukho. Those, and in fact, Sakina, wow, I must commend you. You started this session brilliantly. Why are you here? And in fact, before you ask that question, you painted the picture that makes strange those things we've taken for granted. And you're asking, wouldn't it make you mad if somebody said, now that's what we're lacking. The energy that makes a person impatient and uncomfortable with a situation that's wrong. I'm not only pointing at them, because even us, it's us who harbor people whom we know they got a tender wrong. They bribed so-and-so to get a tender. Instead of us volunteering that information to amapolisa, we harbor, we clap our hands for people whom we know, there's no way you should be affording to drive that car based on the salary that you have. But we applaud them. We applaud them. It's us who, when we have friends that are working in government, we know we don't qualify to supply things. We go and we take the opportunity to supply because we know the person who's there. So it's not an indictment only on them, but also on us. So I think that we need to make sure that, and then really last point is about capability. We take people who cannot lead a street committee and make them leaders. I'm a Xhosa. Back home, I'm a rural boy, so I draw a lot. Back home, if ungumfana and uyalwa ikwala, okay, and a man who's recently come, if you are under 5 years, you don't talk. And also on matters of the village, if you are not married man, you've not learned the art of managing the politics of mothers-in-laws and all of those things and built a house and succeeded. There are things that you cannot participate in. It's part of the society. The idea is not normalizing marriage and all of those things. The idea is capability, that there are capabilities that you are known that if you've managed a relationship between a mother-in-law and your wife and you build capability from that, you qualified for leadership. That's a society. I'm not saying people must have that kind of capability, because we know people who have you led in a school? Have you led in your community? Did you succeed? What do people from your community say about your leadership? We take people who cannot lead families, themselves, or in the community, or we make them lead the mayor, whatever the case may be. And we get the consequences that we deserve. Thank you.
And then we act surprised. Thank you so much, Mr. Ongama Mtinka, first respondent, and second respondent, Professor Phakama Ntshongwana. It's over to you.
Thank you, and good evening, Sakina. Good evening, everyone. Much has been said, so I'll try not to be repetitive, but perspective is critical. The most imperative function of local government is policy implementation. All the work, resources, including time, that goes into conceptualizing, designing policies, implementation, or at least trying to, and thereafter still monitoring and evaluation so that the country can work in wards, local level, provincial level, and ultimately at national level. That perspective is critical. Putting power and political control as the determinant of local governance undermines and erodes structures. That has been said over and over again, but I feel like it cannot be emphasized enough. If indeed the intention is to acquire positions in order to serve people in a functional and humane manner, the tensions that quickly rise can be avoided. The country is beginning to talk about the notion that a legislative framework that governs coalitions be introduced, so that through legally binding agreements, there can be accountability and stability. Switching support at the drop of a hat according to changing interests destabilizes not only local government, but families, children, and disrupts futures. The thinking that independent arbiters also be introduced in order to manage local government, like in some countries, is also being talked about. So it's important to keep these things in mind, if possible, because it is not just about your own interests. It's about everybody sitting here and their families and their families. Most people sitting here are most probably able to support themselves. And if they are, like I am able to support myself, best believe that as a Black African woman, I send money to multiple relatives at the end of the month. I pay the social wage that should be paid by my state. And if services such as sanitation, water, and housing, key components of the social wage, are not met, a considerable number of people don't even survive, because avoidable and preventable diseases take over their lives, and communicable diseases spread in families. And such could be avoided. Also, we are faced with natural disasters. We're faced with climate change. Digital exclusion is real. Not only for the young generation that we, perhaps as university staff, teach, that live in rural areas or that cannot afford, even in urban areas or peri-urban areas, cannot afford to look after themselves or meet their digital needs in order to access education in the same way that a middle-class student can. That just messes up with everybody's futures. So managing these, and if the country does not have confidence that these current challenges can be managed, then how are you supposed to plan for the future of our country? How are you supposed to draw from the National Development Plan that we have and that enormous resources go to in order to ensure that we have a stable country? How local government operates, best believe, impacts leadership at universities. Leadership at universities, with all due respect, students, easily mimics what is happening in local government and also in national government for that matter. And these young people at universities are our future. If I may, they are social capital. 2 months ago, a coalition of hope was declared at Gqeberha. We don't have time. The notion of a peer review, local governance was mentioned. We thought that that was inbuilt. We thought that that is needless to say, that it's what is happening. So we don't have time, honestly. And if you're lining your own interests, we all lose, and we cannot afford to deteriorate any further than the country already is. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to our two respondents, Prof. Pagama, Ungama there, and I think they have summed it up well. And I think just in closing from my side, listening to all of you, it is clear that everybody knows what is expected, what they're supposed to do. And I think it was our representative from the EFF, if I'm not mistaken, Ntombi Zanele, who said that everybody who comes to this comes here, from a certain perspective. You come here because you have it within you to want to help people, to want to serve people. Where that gets lost, I don't know. But you can rest assured that this will not continue forever and a day. And I'm just hoping that you've heard each other here today and that you can all come together, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of what Luthuli House or your Senate or whoever says wherever they are. Ultimately, your first responsibility is to the people of Nelson Mandela Bay. That's your first responsibility. And if your leadership can't understand that, that is something you need to question, I would say. But it's not going to continue forever. I think someone spoke about the bucket system. I think, Mhlaba, you may have mentioned that. Again, failure on your part as a council. The Millennium Development Goals spoke about that eradication. The Sustainable Development Goals shouldn't even have picked up on that because it was supposed to be eradicated already. And here we sit without a shame, without a care in the world, mentioning the fact that people still use bucket systems. Shame on all of us. Then you talk about the infrastructure. Whose fault is that? Who draws a salary here to see to these things every month? Not me, not everybody sitting here, it's you. So when you come here and you tell us about the things that you are supposed to fix, what are we supposed to do? If you don't know, how much we know? Then you talk about water. That constitution, that little booklet, guys, you should carry it around. An inalienable human right. And on a daily basis, there are people in this metro who are deprived of that right. And the only reason why we can still sit here comfortably whilst we are trampling on people's human rights daily is because we live in a society that is not litigious. Otherwise, there would be no money to pay your salaries from all the litigation that would be going on. None of you would be in council because there would be nothing to have in council. So with that said, I'm hoping and I'm praying that this will be, the beginning of something better for Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, and that you would really find it in your hearts to serve the people of this metro. It's not hard. It's not about the positions, guys. If that's why you're here, you need to go and introspect further. But maybe before I just vacate, Madam Speaker, if I can maybe just give an opportunity, maybe 1, 2, 3 questions to the panel before I go. I'm going to keep it short and sharp. Ew. That light is directly in my eye, so I can't see whoever is there. Okay, but can we please keep it short and sharp so that we can close the session out? But sir, there's a mic.
Good evening. I'm Senior Chief Alexander. They call me Dr. Vrachta. But I'm here for a community that we serve in Galvandale and Katanga. We try to have a soup kitchen. We ask for sponsor all over the show. None of these councillors can help us. The DA or not, they only listen. Here we try to feed hundreds of people in kids in Galvandale by begging, by going by the shop, by asking people for handouts. It's unnecessary. If the councillors can do their work, if they don't know how to do the work, we will show them how to do the work. I'm a qualified boilermaker, carpenter, and they don't take us into consideration the skills we got. We can build a city. We build a city. We build a city. South Africa we built. But they're so selfish. They don't listen They don't give attention. You know, the people are hungry outside there. If they take the area, one area, and see how many people work there and how many children are there, because we take those some strand, that square meter. How many houses on that square meter? And square meter, Katanga and Yamadil. How many people live there? There's thousands of people. And only 10 are working. We are struggling there. We come now to the location, we grow our own gardens and everything, and share amongst others. As the old days, we were living in Ubuntu. I hope the councillors, they are, and I know them. And they come from us,
Yeah.
but they think they're higher than us.
You should
We can teach them
stay,
something.
you should keep, knocking. Don't let them get away with it.
I hope they can help me by feeding some people there in the nation.
Okay. Whoever has a mic, if there's a mic on that side, can we have someone on that side? And then can we move the mic along this side?
Conquest, Chief Mo, Matisa. Okay. I do that deliberately. I give you the first language that is spoken in South Africa. Yeah, the Kwekuva. Sakina, just short for my side. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm on my way to Graafrenet to a funeral. But when somebody posted me, I think it's Renee, that you will be here with Mr. Mtinka and everybody and the councillors. Then I said, I'd rather go at night, but I want to be in that session. To do this, when I had a lot, I have nearly about half a book here, but I will go only with one sentence. Mtinka, thank you very much. You are saying people are here for the community, but they are also here for self-interest. Lance, now you must translate this because I did not. Ek het nie my Engels of sout vandag gedrink. Nou, die woord gaan soos die. Professor Dirkie, hy het dit daar in die WK gesê. Almal se motiewe is suiwer tot op 'n sekere punt, maar daarna lê die donker dieptes van eie belang. Can you translate that? I want the people to understand. Okay.
So essentially you're saying
So, okay, Sakina, will you translate that?
yeah, everybody's motives are pure, but only to a certain degree. And then the self and self-interest and who we are ultimately comes out. And
thank you very much. Now here is my question. And councillors and Sakina, everybody, I'm leaving there. They were waiting for me. Don't say he's rude, but I will leave after the question. The question is, there's a certain perspective about the councillors here in the city. I stay there in North and I talked to one auntie there. I won't call her name here because somebody might kick her. And I have said I won't vote for that person because he's a gangster. Do you know what the auntie said to me? She said, no, man. We are all ruled by the gangsters. So the auntie told me. So that is the perception. I said, why do you say so? She said they steal and they are corrupt and they do everything. So there's a bad perspective of the councillors out there. My question is, how are they going to change this? That is my question. Because
thank you.
Thank you, Sakina. Can I go forward?
Yes.
Thank
please
you so
continue.
much. Sakina, it would be very sad for me not to acknowledge Prof. Mfene. If Prof. Mfene was here, she would have been disgusted. Prof. Mfene has passed on and she has taught me. I'm going to deal with three things here. First thing is Section 12. Maya, you are asked, do you understand Section 12? Section 12 is not going to work in our municipality. We are a category A municipality. Section 12 will only work in category B and C municipalities, not even in C, only in B, where the population is a bit smaller, Mayor. Mayor, in this municipality, we have a big population. Therefore, we need to take executive decisions. Secondly, the biggest problem here, Sakina, is that we lack the administration knowledge. Because Mr. Ongama, you will concur with me on this one, and the audience as well, that there is something called the political administrative dichotomy. So currently now what is happening is that the political science field is dominating and overtaking the administration. And that is the problem within our coalitions. Why? Let me make a prime example. The dichotomy states the following, that we want to separate politics from administration, but that is theoretically. But now we come in practically within council. These leaderships here have to elect a city manager. Politicians have to elect a city manager. Where do the city managers sit? At the hierarchy of the administration. So where's the problem? The problem is there, that the coalitions will be compromised because they want to bargain administratively. They should know their place. Now going forward, if we are looking to a 2024 coalition governments, what do we resolve? Nobody gave resolutions here. Going forward, we should move that power out of council and into corporate services, where corporate services can take their mandate and then employ people and appoint people in administrative positions and not council. So then coalitions will be a bit more stable. Coming to this point, Mayor and Mr. Banga. Now, Mr. Banga, this issue with the infrastructure, the ailing infrastructure. Sakina, let me make a typical example. You have somebody in a executive director position of infrastructure and engineering. He has a bachelor's degree or a master's in engineering. Then you have an MMC that does not even have grade 12. How can you do oversight? So now, we have identified the problem. What is the problem? That we are operating, Mr. Ongama, on a spoil system. We are compromised. We should move to the merit-based appointment. So going forward, there is two resolutions. There is two resolutions come 2024. First resolution is this: move the appointment of the administration out of council. Second one is this: let's eradicate credit deployment by removing the spoil system and reintroducing a merit-based system where politicians should be regulated on qualification in order to sit in office. And so I concur. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much. And seems most people agree with that. Of course, it's all about the implementation, getting that to find expression somewhere. But of course, you start somewhere. I don't know, I think we're at the back.
No, you said this side earlier. You said this side earlier.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Thanks for this opportunity. Coming inside here, I was late and I heard, I think, Professor Sipanda or Dr. Sipanda speaking. outlining this process, where we want to go, where the purpose of this gathering here. And in your opening as a facilitator, you came up with a thermometer to each and every politician sitting there. You've asked several times, does it tick or does anyone feel anything? I did not hear any of my leaders answering or nodding. They were just looking at you. I'm not gonna ask a question, but I just want to make a statement. If out of this session, we as the people of the Metro, together with our leaders sitting down there, are we committed to start serving the interests at us, facing the challenges facing us? Are we committed to start tackling them jointly? Whether it's in a coalition, whether it's any political party taking all the power on its shoulders, but is there a commitment to start serving? I've heard all the fight, I've heard all the blaming, and it left me worried. As I came into that door with everything that was said, I felt hope, but now one is worried as to go forward. Are we gonna change things? Are we gonna have transport that is reliable? Are we gonna have safe streets to walk on daily basis? Are our kids gonna be protected at schools? And are we as citizens gonna make sure that we get what we want at the end of the day? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think one last question from this side, and then we'll wrap the session. Okay, one there, one in front, and that 1, 2, 3, and that will be it. I've acknowledged the person here. I have. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Mandela, for the opportunity. Mine is with regards to the infrastructure problem that we face in the city, and I'll use day zero as an instance of one of many problems that we face. Right? I think the problem is when we discuss day zero, we don't look at the causes of day zero. So in this city, we have had an exponential population growth, particularly over the last 5 to 7 years. The infrastructure of this city has not met that population growth. Hence, we have water that is not enough for everyone, right? That is the issue that we face. But because of the politics that exists in this council, that exists in this city, we will never discuss the causes so that we can properly diagnose the solution, so that we can properly create solutions. The issues that we have here are politics, maladministration, mismanagement. As the PA councillor keeps referring to stomach politics, these particular problems are the lack of discussing causes for these problems is the reason why we're here, right? What we have instead is a political party deploying a mayor who will come tell us that a solution is to drink tea. That is the issue that we have in Nelson Mandela Bay. So in the reason why I think causes are important is we have to look at it at a long-term developmental level, where we want to solve day zero permanently. You don't build a sustainable metropolitan city of a country that wants to be first world on a consistently temporary plans and solutions. We need to properly diagnose the problems that we have so that we can create sustainable, futuristic, ambitious solutions. Thank you so much.
I hope the councillors are taking note of what's coming through here. Sir, in the front here.
Hello.
Okay. I don't know where the mic is.
Here's the mic. I've got a mic here.
Oh.
Yes, Sakina.
Okay.
Now look at me.
Oh, this side.
Okay, I'll be quick. I'll be very quick. Do the councillors know what's the meaning of urban sprawl? Urban sprawl. This friend of mine, he summed up beautiful everything. Urban sprawl, give you an example. Ward 1, summer string. 146 square kilometers, that's the size of it. Only 128 people. 146 square kilometers, only 128. Now you get Ward 13. The DA and the ANC love Ward 13 because most of the people stay there. One ward, you have your numbers. That ward, one ward, 13, they look at 21,000 people. Compare 146 square kilometers, Ward 1, 21,000 living in 2.2. Only 2.2 square kilometers, 21,000. So 9,500 people living in 1 square kilometer. So if you divide that, it means 104 people in 1 square block. Now you tell me what will happen to the infrastructure? If 104 people go to toilet at once, what will happen to the drains? Service delivery will never work if urban sprawl is not tackled. We need the 128, we need to move 9,500. Go put them there. That is what we need. Hey? They will never allow it. That's why the DA will be in power for always in Western Cape to protect urban sprawl. That's what the DA, they will kill you. They will kill us.
Okay.
Hey? So urban sprawl, service delivery will never happen. Never, never, never. Our drains is running. Do they know where's the water running? In Katanga, Ward 13. That is where the water is running. And the drains is running. We covered it with SCB, with E-News. We covered the whole of Katanga, all the water leaks. All of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And the final word, sir.
Thank you very much, Sakina. I think this was a very important conversation to be had. When we look at local government is the only sphere of government that really impacts people directly. And it's one of the most important spheres of government. But what we miss from local government is that most of the times they put too much power on politicians, forgetting that local government is like a triangle. It's the residents, the politicians, and the administration. How local government ought to work is that the residents are supposed to hold the politicians accountable, and the politicians are supposed to hold the administrators accountable. What we see in our society is that residents have rendered themselves powerless, forgetting the power that they have. Politicians have rendered themselves headless because we do not have a united vision. Our vision as politicians has turned to, I am better than this one. This one is corrupt. When I get into that position of power, it is all about defending myself because there's someone saying I am better than Nicholas. Nicholas is corrupt. There is no common vision that we're working towards as a metro. So I think from this conversation, from everyone that was speaking here, what we need to do, Ongama, is to have a consolidated vision as a metro. So that even if it is ACTP who is in the mayor's seat, or is it the DA, we can have a vision that we are continually working towards to build a sustainable future for all of us. What that vision does, it makes it easier for the residents to hold politicians accountable. Because how do you hold someone accountable where you don't know where they're working towards? Currently, we have governments that are working on an ad hoc basis to say, there's water, you're fixing water leaks. There's load shedding, you're load shedding. But we don't speak about sustainable solutions. And that's because we do not have a vision. And it starts at a national level. We don't know where South Africa is going. A saying that I always go by, a fish starts rotting from the head, but I believe that we can start cleaning it from the tail, and that is local government.
Thank you so very much. And thank you, everybody. Thanks to our political party representatives who engaged with us here this afternoon. Really enjoyed it and had much fun, but also there's a lot of wisdom that you can actually tap into. You don't have to do it by yourself.
I have been asked to do sort of a closing remarks, which will probably take only 5 minutes. Mine really is just to, as component part of the organizing team, really ask ourselves as to, did we achieve what we sought to achieve? And for me, Prof. Ntombana, there's a definite yes. Because the leadership that we sought to give audience to has admitted, has acknowledged the anarchy that characterizes our city leadership. To that extent, we have achieved. Then the question is, in terms of the theme on top of your program, which says, I'm paraphrasing now, but it's not in front of me, but speaking to are we ready to advance in good governance? And the answer is no. We have admitted to the anarchy. How then do we advance? So that leaves us, the administration, and Nicholas, the citizen, to now not abdicate any further their responsibility of making these leaders account. And themselves must ask themselves as to, do they sell themselves enough to convince the people of the city? I won't answer that, it's for them. Having admitted to the anarchy that characterizes the city, are they ready indeed to advance the city through good governance and leadership? We've already answered that. And naturally, the RMC, ECSECC, SANGOCO have a duty, therefore, to process some of the submission made by all of us here, so that, Marlon, you really dispel of the notion of these platforms tend to be a talk shop, so that there are practical resolutions going forward. As citizens, we're now not in a back foot, perhaps politicians are in a back foot by their own admission anyway. So which gives us that which in actual fact is expected of us, to make those that we have trusted by electing to account. As to what will happen from here on, it's a matter for us working with everybody